Hello, hello? Yeah, okay, now it works. Perfect. So I don't know how many of you work in the media industry or in newsrooms at all, and if you do, how closely you are connected to the newsroom. But today I'll try and give you a perspective of what our newsroom looks like and how we do product and circumstances that we currently face within the media industry. So as you can see at the little Bitmoji at the left bottom, that's me. She will guide us a little bit through the presentation today. So before we start, let me give you a little bit of an introduction of myself. I'm a product manager at 20 Minuten, as Melissa said, and I'm responsible for the connection between the editorial office and the content that we produce for our readers, for our users. So I'm very tight with the editorial office because I have to be, and it's always very chaotic and unstructured. Also, I've been in product for like 5-6 years now. I started off in user research and then switched to product, and I think it helped me a lot to have this empathy for the newsroom to really build products that make a difference for them, because it's really tough to understand them with all this hustle going on and the hamster wheel turning and turning. To get the meta perspective on what's actually going on and what are the challenges that we are currently facing. So let's dive in. For the editors, of course, their daily bread and butter is to produce content, to produce articles that the readers want to read and that are valuable for them. So it's not only about writing articles, obviously, it's also about doing the research, calling experts, learning about topics that they've never known anything about, or maybe they just know very rough, but then they have to fact check, they have to get to know a lot of people. And usually it's not only one topic at a time, but multiple topics at a time that they're currently chasing. But they're not only talking to experts, they're also talking to people on the street. For us at 20 Minuten, it's really important to connect to the people who are actually living in Switzerland and what's going on in their daily life, so we can report stuff that's important to them. So we go out on the street, we talk to users, we do interviews, we do surveys to really get to know what our readers are interested in. And then we also go abroad. So we do the German part of Switzerland, the French part of Switzerland, Europe, and internationally. So for example, for the elections, we travel abroad. If there's any major incident all over the world, we go there to report from the location itself. And then last but not least, breaking news. It's always something that we cannot really plan with, but that we have to scale up quickly whenever a major thing is happening. The newsroom is scaled. The first message goes out within a minute, but then the newsroom is scaled within an hour, and we have like a full team on deck, and you'll have to cancel your private plans because this is just what's going on in the world right now, and people want to know about it, so we have to report about it. And then there's stuff that's not necessarily in the job description itself. Like, you don't have a single focus topic that you can concentrate on and do a deep dive report about it. You have to juggle multiple topics at once, do the research, talk to experts. Not every door opens within a day, so you have to chase some leads for quite a while to really get to that story that you want to report. And then there's people like me who come and ask you stuff. So I'm like, do we want to develop this thing together that might help you, but it doesn't help you now? Like, we have to first put in the work and it will help you in the future. So it's more of a responsibility for them than a necessarily value gain from the first second on. At the same time, of course, there's a little bit more of the boring but very important facet of working as an editor, where you try to keep content quality really high. And grammar and spelling is actually more of an issue than you would think. And of course, we have very important debates going on at all times, because the media industry is facing a really tough time right now because it's changing so much, and I'll come to that in a second. But we need to solve that with the editorial team. We cannot have this discussion in product or just in upper management. We need to solve it with the people who are actually working in the editorial office. And then, no, it doesn't go. Maybe, yeah. So the editors do all that working in shifts, and then we don't do it weekly. We do that every day. So this can lead to a lot of pressure for the editors, since they have to juggle so many things and keep so many balls up at one time. And then, like I said, we have the challenges that we face in the media industry. Social media is getting a bigger and bigger competitor because people can follow 10 newspapers at a time on a place where they get updates from friends and family. So I would do that too. It's just so much more convenient, and we have to compete with that. Then there's, I mentioned breaking news before. It's obviously part of our daily business, but it cannot be our business because it's super unpredictable. And of course, if Trump gets shot, all our numbers go up. Like, business really profits from it, but that's nothing we want to rely on. It's important, but we cannot make that part of our business planning and of our value proposition, because if we would fail any time where times just get a little bit better. And then also the image of the media industry has really taken some hits, I would say, because people are not quite sure anymore. Like, how much does the government really influences the media? How much of the content is bought? Like, how much is sponsored? And they're losing more and more trust in the media industry. And that's not only one publisher, but multiple ones. And then we have AI. It's a big challenge, but it's also a big opportunity. There's a lot we can do with it, but it's very new, and there's a lot of questions that you need to answer to really handle it responsibly and gain value from it and not take risks that might be the downfall in the future. And then especially during Corona, we saw that a lot of people are getting tired more and more of the media, because it's just reporting bad news all the time, because that's what's important to know. But if it's just another bad news and another bad news, and then during Corona, you're like, everything was negative anyway. You had to stay at home, you didn't see your friends and family, there was a lot of negative media, and then people just got tired of it. They also feel super helpless because they hear all these news, but what can they do? And then we have to find a way to empower them and help them to do something about what they're reading about. And then social media is a challenge in itself, but it's also the companies, the big tech giants, being a very big competitor in the advertising market. We make basically all our money, we're a free newspaper, from ads. So the higher the competition in the international ad space, the easier it is for Swiss people to buy cheap ads on social media, the less they will buy it from us. And we have to find a value proposition that's appealing enough for us to be there tomorrow as well. So if you feel a little bit like this is how we felt mostly this year. And we were really trying to figure out, with so many fronts, what do we tackle first? Where's the most value? And how can we solve most of these challenges? It was clear from the second one that we cannot solve all of them, but really put in our best work possible. And we haven't even talked about the user yet. So our whole app, we have so many features. It's really nothing's really perfect yet. So where do we start? And then our head of product and our CTO put in a lot of work to put this into a very neat strategy. It's actually very actionable, and I'm very happy we have that now. With 27 initiatives, we scaled up the product team. So we have 4 product managers now instead of 2. And we have a clear roadmap going forward. So we know what we will work on in the next month. But then you might also agree with this guy. And I wouldn't really judge you for it, because there's still 27 initiatives, and all these are very big. But just to give you an idea, we had 95 to start with. So we already cut 2/3, which is really good. And then we have more people working on it. But then today I want to talk about, how do you bridge the gap? So if you're in between, if you're a company that doesn't want to do or create a product strategy, or if you have a product strategy but it's not really actionable and you can't do anything about it, how do you approach product then? And bridging this gap might be, I'd say, a little bit more obvious than you would think, because I think it's just progress over perfection. You start with the things that are super obvious, with a challenge that's very big and you know you can solve. Is it the best one? Probably not, but maybe it's the 3rd best or the 4th best, which is better than the 91th best. So already a big improvement. So what we did is we saw one challenge with the editors that I haven't talked about before. They were spending a lot of time, at least our smaller tenants, L'Essentiel, French and German and 20 Minuten and Le Matin, they were spending a lot of time translating content from 20 Minuten because we needed to save costs. They were scaled down a little bit, so they needed to find a way to create the same amount of content that is performing just as well with less resources. So that's why they did it. But then that's nothing an editor is trained for. That's not why they chose the job. So it's not really fun. And they don't want to do copy and paste work. So it's not creative. Like, all the editors are super creative. They're basically like designers, but in writing. And they were also turning unhappy because of that. And then, of course, there's opportunity costs. So whenever they were translating article, they were not producing anything original for their newspaper. And we also asked the question, like, can we just get rid of the task? Like, is it something we just don't do anymore? And then the editors can save the time. But no, it's really valuable because we see content performing at 20 Minuten. So why not share it with a bigger audience and let more people benefit from it? And also it really improves the numbers of the other tenants. So then we built this. We call it the Rapid Redactor. There's actually quite a few people here in the room who helped build this. Where you go on 20 Minuten, the website, you have an article, and then you have these buttons on the left where you can send it to any tenant that you want. And then it goes through an AI, and it does basically everything for you. So it translates the article, picks out all the images, it maps the author, maps categories, it even translates the metadata of the images. It has the structure and format in it as the editors would want them, and it opens the CMS right away, so they don't have to go search for the article, then copy and paste everything out, copy and paste it into our system, into their new system, then look for the images, which could take 15 minutes for an image if you really were looking for that one, and then the metadata was not put perfect into the other CMS. So I could get a real struggle, and it's not enjoyable work. And this is how it works technically. So you go to the website. We have used TemperMonkey, which is Chrome extension where you can build your own Chrome extension on without going through the whole process with Google. So we built, based on that, our own Chrome extension. It takes the data from our CMS, from 20 Minuten, and puts it into, like, adds the prompt, adds all the context, and then sends it to an LLM. In the prompt, we have everything that's about the role of the system, and then everything that's within, like, all the details within a text. So how you write numbers, how you, like, which Swiss words you want to exchange, number formats. I mentioned like quotation marks. So there's a lot. It's really, really, really long. And we sent that currently to Gemini. We've used GPT-2. Currently, we get better results with Gemini, but we can switch those easily if we want to. And then we use the output, put it through structured output to get the same JSON structure, and inject it into another tenant's CMS, so they can directly open it there. Oh, this doesn't look right. So right now, I was looking at these numbers 5 months after we have put this feature to life, and the first month, as with Go Live, is always a little bit different to the other months, but we have produced 5,000, I think 180, that should be, articles right now using the Rapid Redactor, which is a little bit more than 1,000 articles a month, so about 33 articles a day. And since that might not tell you much, so 33 articles a day, how much is that? We were asking the editors before how much time they spend translating and transforming an article, and they said 15 minutes to 4 hours, depending on the length and complexity of the article, and if they do a little bit of further research. So let's say 2 hours on average. So if you spend 2 hours on average and transform 33 articles a day, that's 12 FTE. So quite a big amount of time saved, and they wouldn't have been able to do that before they used the Rapid Redactor. And this is only with L'Essentiel France and German right now, because we haven't really started implementing it at 20 Minuten and Le Matin yet. But of course, there are a lot of open questions remaining that we still have to ask. I don't want to act like it's perfect yet. It's still stuff we figure out, and we still have to further develop this whole feature. So one of the questions is like, how far can we take this? You could take this really, really far if you think about it. You could scrape any content from any publisher, completely transform it, and write a new article and auto-publish it without an editor seeing it. Do we want to go that far? Probably not. But how far do we want to go? Then how do we protect ourselves from hallucinations? I was talking about fake news before and about losing trust in the media industry. And whenever we publish something that's not correct, our brand really takes hits from it. So how often can we do that without losing our good image that we have in Switzerland now? Every second German in Switzerland is reading 20 Minuten. Will they do that if there's fake information everywhere? If they know we use AI to write our articles? Probably not. And then we were talking about this earlier when we were talking about how to use AI for coding. So the same goes for our editors. How do you really train them to write good articles if they never have to do it, if they can use GPT to start with? And then usually you have to be better at writing using GPT to create a good article than if you would write it yourself, because you have to understand how to structure a text on a meta level and really have the experience on what goes how. Like, how do you create a text that really lands with the audience? And then there's also this, like, producing more content, putting it to more people. It's the same content. Why do you not only translate it? There is a question, are we just contributing to noise, or are we contributing to accessibility of information? Like, are we helping people to know stuff? Are we just creating noise? Is there so much value in this? And then, of course, there's a fear for editors that they might lose their jobs because AI now gets better and better at creating content. But how can we make sure that it's not about losing jobs, but changing the job description? Maybe it just looks different in the future of what an editor has to do than what it does right now, but there's still value in the human writing the article and checking the information. And what would the job description of an editor look like in the future? And then I mentioned this before, like, can we fully automate the whole process? But also going one step further, looking at it from an ethical perspective, what would we think our readers would be okay with if they would know about what we were doing internally? This sometimes gives you a very fresh perspective of the ethics. Like, if they would know that we are just transforming articles from one brand to another, it's probably okay. But if we do more than that, if we just take notes and let AI write it, would they really still read 20 Minuten, or would they just go to any blog? And then you can take it to a whole new level. And it is a question that came up with us in our discussions internally a couple of times. Maybe AI is the first technical tool we can use that is a bit too powerful. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions? Yeah, here I come with the mic. Yeah, it should be working. Yeah.
Thank you. To be completely honest, my serious question was how do you handle hallucinations? But it's an open question, therefore no need to ask. The other question is, have you used AI for creating all those avatars there, or someone actually drew them?
No, they're designed by hand. The first question is actually worth asking, I would say. We don't have a solution yet, but we have solution approaches that we thought about. You know, in like basic software, there's this equals that. We can use that to compare text that the original one with the new one. Did numbers change? Did names change of a country? We can, with AI, calculate the similarity of one text to another, and that within sentences to see if the content has changed a little bit, and then highlight it based on chance, like not chance. Predictability, I don't know what you say, like percentages, how much they would fit, and then when there's, I don't know, only 70% the same, then we could highlight it as yellow, so the editors has to check have to check it before we publish. Something like that we could do. And we were thinking about different approaches and what would be the best thing to do with also the other AI solutions we are currently using.
I just wanted to add that actually to have like
so it must be a solution that fits most of our use cases. Otherwise, it's just a lot of effort for I don't know how much value. And the avatars are from Bitmoji. So everyone can create their Bitmoji. There's designers that have created these, and then you just look for keywords to copy and paste them on your slides.
Thank you so much for the answer for the hallucinations, and for the other one, yeah, I'm just wondering how the consistency was actually made, but cool, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. You can yell.
I don't have a I don't have a question, but more kind of like a comment about hallucinations and how we prevent that. So one thing would be to adjust kind of like prompts, and we noticed that with certain prompts it gives us less hallucinations. And also with the solution that we have, we presented this to Google in Zurich, and also asking the same questions, how we can reduce hallucinations there. There are no really kind of like recipes, do that and you will resolve it, or you won't have this problem. But at the moment, it feels like almost like a workaround, but there was also suggested by Google themselves that they have so many kind of like we have so many requests that we can send to them that we can actually, after getting some result, we can also ask like, hey, Gemini, what do you think about the result? Is this good? Do you think you hallucinated about that? And we can kind of like have a correcting results afterwards. And because of those millions tokens we are getting, that it's really cheap to ask as many questions as we want. Yeah.
And also we do some very basic stuff already where, so for example, it would be a tell for Swiss Germans if there would be a sharp S, like an SZ in the text, and we replace them always with an SS, just so this tiny little thing couldn't be a big giveaway. But yeah.
Anybody else? You could have said earlier.
I have a question. How do you fact check or proof AI generated images? For example, if something happens like in the news and an AI generated image somehow sneaks into the news. Of course, there's probably metadata, but I guess metadata can also be doctored too. So how do you do it?
It's a good question. We don't have a solution yet. The images that are within our articles, they all come from agencies. So we just say it's a trusted source. They should check their images and their text before sending it to us. And we're not the only publisher doing it that way, because that's what you pay them for, right? We do get content from our users. And there we're just a little bit more cautious, or we try to get them to send us another image from another perspective about the same scene or something like that. So if we can do it, we do it. And we have one woman in our editorial office who just does that all day. She's fact-checking social media videos and is putting it like fake news if there's something that's not right or was tampered with. And whenever an editor has a question about an image that might have been AI generated, then they go to her and ask her. And we have an AI expert who's also a good source to go to if you have any thoughts about that being AI generated. But the images that we use within the articles are basically never, like they're self-taken out from agencies. And if we use images that are AI generated, that's usually because we write about AI. And then we label it that it was AI generated.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah. I waited now.
Yeah, just one more question regarding the translation part. How the AI is aware of the different languages, about the metrics in the language? Not especially French and German are not that close. So is it just pure translating, or is also aware of the content?
So for now, we are pure translating. We do have a little bit of awareness, I would say. We tell them to translate it to a certain language and in what way. And now we have an experiment running actually right now with 1 minute to also have a style part within the prompt to restructure the text. And then like French in the western part of Switzerland is a little bit more, how you say, poetic. Like they have a different language. They describe things differently. They use the names differently. And we have created out of 10 or 12 articles from them a style prompt using GPT that we now implemented into our current prompt that we have. And then we compare the author, like human translated article, with the GPT and Gemini with the old prompt, and then with the new prompt with the style component in it, to see how good editors are at getting the right text, like what was translated by a human, and then also to see which version with which model would work best.
Anybody else? Okay, I have a question because I'm here to cover the human side of the process today. So what was the reaction of the people actually in the newsroom when they started using this tool?
I think for this tool it was a bit different than for the other AI tools. I'll get to that in a second. So for this tool, it was for L'Essentiel France in Germany. And at the end of last year, we had to cut a lot of jobs there and had to save costs. So they had to be more resourceful, let's put it that way. And they were super happy to have this because it really reduced workload. And then from the start, they could use it. They just had to, we had like, I don't know, the day I started, I think at 20 Minuten, mid-June, we had like 30 messages from one of the stakeholders there that was testing it very intensely. And we worked on that over time. And now they're super happy with it. And as you can see in the numbers, they're using it also a lot. And I think in the whole time we had 2 very sneaky hallucinations where the editors had to be very careful. But other than that, it just really works fine and saves a lot of time. And they also now send one article to another tenant from L'Essentiel France to L'Essentiel German. And they are creating more international news than, for example, 1 Minute. So it's also very easy for them to send that to 1 Minute now. So there's more and more use cases for them where they can use this, and they get a better hang of it as well. Because template marking is really great to build a Chrome extension, but it's also a little bit technical, at least for an editor, because you have to enable the dev mode. Sometimes it doesn't show up, and then there are these little hiccups, but they were super patient with that as well. But I guess because the pain was so high. We do have an AI assistant in our CMS as well, where we produce, like based on the article, we produce the short summary. We have polls and metadata that we can produce where the editors are not the experts anyway. And it just really makes sense to implement what we did in GPT before and that UI into our CMS. And there the editorial office is way more cautious, I would say, and for a reason, because they're afraid that the editors just might take the easy way. They're super stressed, as I said, and then don't read through the whole thing as thoroughly as if they would write it themselves, or if they would actively copy and paste it in. And there we have a lot more discussions. And there we also haven't, we have implemented it technically already for title, lead, and header, so for the top part of the article, but we haven't implemented it yet because we're just going one step at a time, building trust. We will check how much the editors edit the AI-generated content after it was taken in. So all that. We do have the SEO metadata, and we still have to check if it's good for the numbers or bad. There's a lot of open questions.
Good topic for the next year's conference. Why not? Do you have any additional questions in the meantime? Okay, thank you, Karen, once again. It was amazing.